Everything we thought we knew about Iron Man 2 is wrong. The hero isn't the hero. The villain isn't the villain. The plot isn't the story. So what the hell's going on with this movie? Iron Man 1 started with AC/DC blaring in Afghanistan and a flurry of witty jokes. It was like drinking 4 Red Bulls and snorting gunpowder off your favorite stripper's back, and she only charged you Thursday afternoon prices instead of Saturday night prices. For the second entry, we begin in a dingy Moscow apartment. For most people, this would be a letdown. But as a connoisseur of dingy apartments, conspiracy theories, and Russians, I'm intrigued. There's been a betrayal. One dying father tells his son that it wasn't supposed to be this way. The son should have been the Iron Man. Instead, it seems his fate is to waste away in this cold apartment, doomed to live out his days in the crumbling Soviet winter wasteland. Has there ever been one, just one, happy moment in Russia? Even the bird gets drunk in Soviet Russia. You don't know it yet, but this man, this fallen, bitter man, is so much more than what he first appears to be. Rewatching Iron Man 2, it makes me question everything now. Iron Man 2 as a movie is a perfectly forgettable, yet amusing film for the many reasons that we will examine here tonight. But Iron Man 2 is a piece of cultural commentary? Well, for that's one of the best Marvel movies of all time. While this exiled Soviet Iron Man strains over some great labor in a dim and futureless lair between gulps of bitter vodka as the snow falls outside, we see what life is like for a Western billionaire. The American media has feeded Iron Man in cover story after cover story after cover story. Iron Man secures world peace, gets Time's Person of the Year, but that's not why this Russian is screaming and drinking. 10,000 feet above God and mankind, we reunite with Marvel Jesus himself. He nosedives through the fireworks and lands flawlessly in a stadium full of strippers as AC/DC blares. Too many women, too many pills. Yeah, tell me about it. The cheese factor's at an all-time high. It's like if Lockheed Martin had a stripper cheerleader squad to announce their next hypersonic missile at an AC/DC concert. I love it. At least, at first I did. But something's not right. Anyways, this is the Stark Expo. Flashy American grifter's dad, Howard Stark, used to show off his gadgets. It's all about a better future, which of course means more government contracts for Stark Industries, more bombs to drop, more weapons to sell. I don't care what Tony says he's about now. That's his family legacy.
So from all of us at Stark Industries, I'd like to personally show you my ass.
I know. In Iron Man, he said he was going to change the ways his company does business. It's been years since we last saw him. Has he democratized the arc reactor to bring clean, safe, renewable energy to communities around the world? Has he created any new technologies to help the world? Has he, released a free version of Jarvis to the public? Doesn't look like it. It's still early in the film. Maybe this is just a setup for a grand character arc. Yeah, a setup alright. If only I knew. As Stark hustles out the back of the expo, they give us what we all came to see. Yiddies. Now, this is one of the most important moments of the entire film. Not because it's Yiddies, but that certainly helps. It's because these two big Yiddies are a stark reminder that in 2010, we were living in a time of unbridled freedom. An era where men were allowed to look at Yiddies because that's what men like to do. And in LA, women love to show them, and they make a lot of money showing them. You could have never guessed that in 5 years a great dystopia would settle across America. Freedom of thought would be lost, freedom of speech would be lost, comedy was lost, no one was allowed to laugh, manliness was lost. In fact, gender itself was lost. Presidents would be framed. Intelligence agencies would betray the American people they were sworn to protect. Reporters would become propagandists for a crony elite that despised the working class. Am I talking about the plot to Captain America, Winter Soldier, or something else? Maybe it's just too late and I've had too many cups of coffee, too many pills. The US government wants Tony's suit, but he won't give it to him, so they've hauled his ass to Washington, D.C. for a civilized inquiry to get him to hand over the suit.
F you, Mr. Stark. F you, buddy.
Well, at least he said Mr. For 2010, this would be a totally insane Senate hearing, but by today's standards, this is actually a normal day in the Senate.
You up?
And that's
you
what-
I don't like you. Yourself.
Hold it.
No.
Mr. Coleman.
You work for me. I'm a taxpayer. You work for me.
Stark is starking. He's being a total asshole, alternatively flirting with Potts and negging the senator. But now it's hammer time. Justin Hammer time to be exact. He's a government weapons executive who gives a speech like if a TikTok kid was impersonating a rock star who was impersonating a corporate executive who was trying to avoid revealing that he was anything other than a con artist, impersonating a corporate executive whose marketing team had forced him to watch too many TikTok influencers and rock star interviews on podcasts. And then they do him real dirty. They call in Rhodes to testify. He reads an ice-cold takedown of Iron Man. Out of context, of course. No one has read a fully contextualized quote since 2016, but in 2010, at least they had the courtesy to tell you they were reading something blatantly out of context. Undeterred by the out-of-context assault, Tony does some hacking and discovers that Hammer has been trying to create an Iron Man suit for the government.
Oh, shit!
It failed. Tony's back in his Malibu office. The robot still can't get his coffee order right.
They'll turn you into a wine rack.
Your whole day can go wrong if you get a bad coffee. Trust me, I know. That's why I go with straight black from McDonald's or 7-Eleven. Besides, they make the best coffee in America. I'll fight anyone to the death who claims differently. But Tony's got a serious problem. As serious as a bad cup of coffee. The continued use of the Iron Man suit is killing him. And then, it happens. The first instance of this happening anywhere on planet Earth. Tony makes Pepper Potts CEO of Stark Industries. This is the first woman in history to get to the top spot without giving jobs all the way up the corporate ladder. Now, don't get me wrong, whenever you see a guy get to the top, he's also giving jobs all the way up the corporate ladder. And his ass. Natalie Rushman, who hates the male gaze but has made literally hundreds of millions of dollars from it, shows up with some paperwork and a dress that eventually leads its wearer to becoming the CEO of whatever corporation she's trying to infiltrate.
I want one.
See, it's working already. A threesome fly to Monaco for the Grand Prix, because that's what billionaires do. Elon Musk is here, a newly minted tech nerd who uses his brains to fly up the ladder of society. In 2010, this might have passed for a cool cameo, proving that anyone can do anything if they put their mind to it. In America, even a huge nerd can appear in a flashy Hollywood blockbuster. In 2025, it's obvious. It's not that anything's possible, it's just all for sale. To be honest, I just wish cigarettes were cheaper. Oh yeah, and the blonde journalist crusader from Vanity Fair is here, the one who gets really wrapped up in her stories.
Well, she did quite a spread on Tony last year.
And she wrote a story as well.
It was very impressive.
That was good.
Very well done.
Tony goes racing because he's a billionaire, but he's about to get a severe case of whiplash. I'm sorry, what the fuck is going on with this toothpick? The toothpick is just retarded. I never liked this Marvel villain, but that was before I understood who he really was. So he's got the toothpick. He's got the Dostoevsky one, aka the Soviet arc reactor. He's got the laser whips, but he gets hit with the rolls. They definitely miss an opportunity to hit us with some Limp Bizkit here. There are great fights in the MCU. This isn't one of them. First of all, this guy should have just shit himself and should now be paralyzed from the waist down. He's not wearing some hardcore mech suit that would have protected him from getting rammed and crunched by a 5,000-pound Rolls Royce. If that's not stupid enough, the fight devolves into total absurdity. Stark breaks out a gigantic suitcase and then has to stand there and wait one eternity while it unpacks itself and a second eternity while it assembles around Tony. This is one of the dumbest moments of the early MCU and it makes it one of the worst fights ever. Only an MCU villain would wait this long and not take advantage of the hero's vulnerability to destroy him. So now, Tony is conveniently ready to fight. Vanko wraps him up and starts melting his armor, but not enough to totally destroy the suit. Tony's able to get in close and knock him out. I'm pretty sure getting punched like this with iron gauntlets would be breaking ribs and internal organs. So unless this guy is packing a Wolverine-style skeleton, he should be coughing up blood. Instead, he manages to laugh in Iron Man's face as the police drag him away to the Monaco jail, which is a seaside resort with a 5-star menu. There are a lot of problems here. First of which is that no foreign government, having seen a man with an arc reactor and laser whips go toe-to-toe with Iron Man, has either assassinated this guy by the time he gets to his jail cell, or has put him on a plane to their capital city so they can get him to build his technology for their country, and then probably kill him. Second, the Monaco Police Department's a total joke. Monaco is a beach for billionaires. The biggest crimes here are champagne that isn't old enough. Stark charges in his holding cell for some PvP with words. Vanko says his plan was to show that Stark isn't invincible. If you make God bleed, there'll be blood in the water. The sharks will come and devour him. But that begs the question, can God fit in the ocean? And if he was God, wouldn't he just turn his blood into wine and get everyone drunk? It's a terrible line of dialogue and one of the biggest declines from the first movie, where this would have been a great and witty exchange with Tony landing a bunch of clever shots. Before I really understood Vanko, I'd say it's also terrible motivation for a major villain. Think about it. This guy's entire life was destroyed by the Stark family, and he's content to just show that you can scratch Marvel Jesus? I don't buy it, and you shouldn't either. But later, this becomes one of the most important scenes in the movie. Tony's counters that this guy'll die in prison, and it looks like he's won the chat boxing session. But then Vanko hits him with a haymaker. He knows Tony's little secret.
Palladium in the chest. Painful way to die.
Vanko, of course, breaks out of jail and joins Hammer for a nice evening dinner, filled with refined conversation.
I want to go to that Stark Expo. I want to take a dump in Tony's front yard. You know what I'm talking about?
After toasting to destroying Stark's legacy and ruining his grass, Ivan has a demand. He wants his bird.
Is this a bird back in Russia?
Rhodes visits Tony in Malibu because the government wants the suit. Now. They saw what happened in Monaco, and they're pissed they didn't get it first. So it's time for Tony to hand over the suit. Instead, he starts drinking. Well, it is his birthday after all, and he's trying to start it off with a bang. Look at her shake that drink.
Is that dirty enough for you?
Well, you can see why the nerds wanted to clone her voice into all the AI sex bots. He puts on the Iron Man suit and then California Lovin' drops. That's how you know it's a party. But Rhodes goes Rotocop and shuts it down like Onyx.
Give me a fat beat to beat my buddy's ass.
They fight and it only serves as a reminder of just how bad the fights are in this movie. Well, there is one really good fight, but you won't believe who gets all the action. They end up shooting each other's blasts and the whole house basically explodes. It's like if two supercocks touched tip to tip, it would just destroy the entire planet. Now, I've hated this fight scene for a long time. There's a core problem to the whole MCU and it starts right here. Really powerful character duels always end in a stalemate unless you have great writing to bail them out. Unfortunately, there isn't a clever trick that Rhodes discovers to temporarily gain the upper hand and disable Tony. Rhodes steals the suit and flies away like a heavy metal Peter Pan, and Tony Stark just lets him? I'm gonna say that again. Rhodes steals the Iron Man suit. So the US government has literally stolen tech that one of its billionaire darlings invented. This is a huge problem the film never addresses, and I don't think the broader MCU ever confronts either. Rhodes should be the #1 enemy to Stark at this point. This is an insane betrayal. There's no way he would just let someone fly away with this and not rally and chase him down and take it back. But instead, after a fight with the closest thing Tony has in this world to a friend, he goes to sober up at Randy's Donuts in Inglewood. I remember this shot. It's a beautiful shot. Dare I say an iconic shot. In 2010, I could go along with the idea that yeah, Iron Man needs a break every now and then, and he can put that suit on cruise control and softly skim down the sky from Malibu to grab a donut and a coffee, and just do some good old-fashioned California dreaming. I want him to live that life. I want someone to be living that dream. But these days, we see things differently. Here is a guy who is hoarding a piece of super tech from a world that desperately needs it. He got drunk, and then while violence and evil ravage the planet, decides to burn off his hangover with a donut and coffee in South LA. Nero at least played the fiddle while Rome was burning to give the world a little music, but this guy just goes Homer Simpson mode for pure self-indulgence. But there's a sinister figure across the street who's going to make his hangover even worse, the Deep State. They call themselves S.H.I.E.L.D. in this movie. Tells him they've had their eyes, or eye, on him for a while. Natasha Romanoff, who hates the male gaze but has made hundreds of millions of dollars because she wears provocative outfits picked by her powerful studio bosses rather than stand by her principles and not take these exploitative roles. Shows up wearing leather tighter than high school, but I mean leather tighter than a Marvel studio executive's asshole. I mean leather tighter than the odds that Ghislaine Maxwell will be alive in 2026, so she can exploit the male gaze and keep the money rolling in. Turns out Tony's secretary was a secret agent working for the Deep State on one of the most nefarious projects the US government has ever created.
Is there anything real about you?
Her bouncers, her big bouncers are real, and those lips, those things can really suck a big fat dick. To give him a lecture and then all his dad's belongings so that he can figure out how to cure his palladium illness and sort out all of his daddy issues between basking in childhood nostalgia and freshly mixed old fashions. Now look, every man to ever walk the earth has problems with his father. Most of us are too busy paying student loan debt and defaulting on healthcare bills. We can't afford to recline in a Malibu mansion, sip on old fashions, and dream about humping our hand-picked blonde and black-haired secretaries between sorting out our paternal rage. The more I see a Tony Stark, the less relatable he becomes, the less heroic he becomes. But maybe they're just setting him up for a big change, a grand character arc just like they did in the first movie. And now, it's Hammer time. It's actually criminal that they never say that in the entire movie. Maybe MC Hammer has it copyrighted. Hammer strutting his stuff, showing off his guns to Rhodey because they gave him the Iron Man suit. Then comes his coup de grace. He calls it the ex-wife. Back in the day, sure, this joke would land because it was well known that a trophy wife is going to take everything you own. Today, well, none of us can afford to get married or buy a house. If I want to feel companionship and a little bit of excitement, well, that's what books and cigarettes are for. Speaking of books, Hammer makes one of my favorite references in the MCU.
We're any smarter to write a book book that would make Ulysses look like it was written in crayon.
Let it be recorded that in the year 2010, Marvel, in a comic book movie, makes an allusion to the most dense and scholarly book ever written, James Joyce's Ulysses. But the clowns who crank out content for the corporate farms these days haven't even heard of Ulysses, let alone read even the first sentence of that book. Tony wants to show Pepper Potts he's falling in love with her, so he brings her strawberries.
Did you know that there's only one thing on Earth that I'm allergic to?
Strawberries.
She has to go do CEO things, so he leaves him alone with his thoughts. Probably about Romanoff's nice tight ass. Before he leaves the office, he notices something about his dad's city of the future, Tomorrow Starkland, so he carries it home for deeper analysis, and then goes Bob Lazar mode.
Congratulations. You have created a new element.
To be fair, this is exactly how a robot would tell you that you invented something the universe has never seen before. But it seems like a woefully lackluster response to, inventing something like an entirely new element that the universe has never seen before. While Tony's been adding some new letters to the table of periodic elements, Ivan's been whipping up something extra special, using Hammer's cold hard cash. The parallel is obvious, just like Stark tricking the Lord of the Ten Rings, except this time it's a nefarious American arms dealer with a great sense of humor.
I'm gonna leave now, and I'm gonna go to the expo. Maybe I'll even get laid.
It's terrible that the best line of the movie goes to Hammer and not to Tony Stark, but that reminds me that Stark ain't the hero, and I'm not supposed to be rooting for him anyways. At the Griftpo, Hammer introduces drones for each branch of the military. Then Tony shows up. Banco's hacked the system. The drones run out into the street and start shooting as people flee the stadium, but they don't hit anyone. Feels like they pulled their punches here. This should have been a massacre. Tony Stark should have failed miserably. It would have given this movie the weight it so desperately needed to make it a classic. Perhaps a tragic one, but a classic nonetheless. This kid who looks like Iron Man almost gets killed. It's an absurdly optimistic interpretation on what would have really happened if this movie wasn't trying to do propaganda for the billionaire. Deep down, I think an honest look at Iron Man reveals he's more like a character from The Boys and less like an actual capital H hero who has matured, wrestled with his demons, and evolved from a self-obsessed billionaire playboy. But before I can really grapple with these dark thoughts, I'm distracted by Romanoff's absurdly tight black leather. There's some great action cheese as Romanoff beats off every man in the building for looking at her the wrong way. Happy shows us that deep down, he's a dog. Now it's time for the final showdown, and this is important. The first Iron Man fight was just Iron Man versus a bigger Iron Man. This is their chance to finally give Iron Man the epic fight he deserves.
You wanna be a hero?
What?
And they're not going to do it again, are they? Yeah, it's just a bigger Iron Man again, this time with laser whips. So they just do the super cock tip touch of doom and double blast Fanko, and as he's dying he sets all the droids to blow. Tony saves Pepper. They finally smooch on the roof, and he gets a threesome, but maybe not the threesome he was hoping for. Brody awkwardly third wheels it and was watching them make out. After Tony comes off the roof, he meets the Deep State. He shares Natasha's report on his eligibility for a little Deep State program called the Avengers Initiative. Fury tells Tony he's not Avengers material, too much of a loose cannon, but he can be a consultant. That's Deep State speak for, we still want your tech, but we don't trust you. The plot to Iron Man 2 has always bothered me. It never really seemed like there was a clear story where a charming hero and dastardly villain clash and the hero saves the world. I used to think it was just another boring sequel that suffered from being a sequel. But when you watch closely, a very important story emerges. One Marvel didn't want to let out and did its best to conceal and suppress. What we see, in fact, is a film that is uncertain, perhaps even afraid, about who the hero and villains really are. So let's take a closer look at these and what the film really wants to tell us about the main characters. Iron Man, villain. Tony Stark, villain. Fuck Iron Man. That's what you're going to say after this review is over. You won't want to. At first you'll resist with every bone in your body, just like I did. But when you look at the evidence, you have to admit, just like I did, that there is something deeply wrong with this character. But how can you say that when he saves a whole stadium full of people? Yeah, I'll get to that. Here's one of the biggest problems with Tony Stark. He's Tony Stark. Yeah, in many ways, he's his own worst enemy. Sure, we can accept Tony as a charismatic genius and is capable of creating incredible technology and, by extension, means of protecting that technology. But this one-eyed goon from the Deep State was able to get a drop on him near a donut shop in Inglewood after Tony had a rough night partying and fighting with an old friend. This guy could have turned Tony's head into a donut hole and stolen his suit. Tony just got lucky they decided to buy him a second round of coffee instead. Here's another devastating flaw of Stark's. It's got a very, very exploitable weakness. Women. You never knew who Romanoff really was. She was able to smuggle herself into his inner orbit. because she wears tight dresses and has incredible yitties and big juicy lips that could suck, so she could have killed him at any point. He's not the most scrupulous character, is he? In fact, his technology makes him arrogant, which is yet another weakness that is easily exploitable. At this point, I think we can see that even the most basic KGB agent can infiltrate his Malibu mansion, assassinate Tony Stark, and steal the suit and use it for nefarious ends all over the world. While all of these are bad, to me they pale in comparison to the fatal flaw that I'm about to reveal next. What has Tony done with the arc reactor? He told the world that it was going to be the focus of his company, creating safe, clean, affordable energy for people all around the world. Kind of sounds like he was signing everyone up for a post-fossil fuel utopia. He never does it. Instead he goes to Monaco to race cars for fun, because that's what billionaires do. They sell you lies based on what they know deep down you want. Iron Man 2 leaves a serious cloud of suspicion over our charismatic hero. At this point, I don't think I'll ever see Tony Stark in a favorable light. And to think, before rewatching Iron Man 2, I was Team Iron Man. Now I think I gotta change jerseys. Sign up with Team Captain America. Yeah, I know Tony makes a great sacrifice way out in Endgame, but even then, I think he might have had dubious motivations. And I'll definitely interrogate them when the time comes. All things in good time. Let's look at some things he should be doing if he was in fact a hero. First things first, defending the world. This is impossible. His suit gives him the power to fly anywhere, but he's only one person. He literally can't be everywhere all at once. There are countless conflicts and villains all across the globe at any given time. There's no way Tony could ever defend the entire world, even though part of him might wish to do that. It's selfish to think he should be the only person to have this technology and be a one-man army. Deep State knows this. That's part of the reason they're assembling the Avengers in the shadows, and part of the reason why they're publicly trying to ridicule Stark into sharing the tech. You know you're on the wrong side of an issue, and even the Deep State and the corrupt American government is making sense against your claims. So what is Stark doing while the bad people are doing bad things in different time zones? Well, he's getting pepper pot strawberries. He's driving race cars in Monaco. He's grappling with daddy issues. Oh yeah, he's dying. And you know what? We don't see him saving or protecting anyone in this movie until the very, very end. Doesn't seem so heroic now, does he? What about saving all those innocent people in the stadium? Well, they aren't so innocent. This actually has more to do with another character, Ivan Vanko. Here's what the movie wants you to believe about Ivan Vanko, that he's a simple villain driven by personal revenge against Tony Stark and the Stark family. But the truth is something disturbingly different. He's the real hero. Vanko is the working class hero that America forgot about. In fact, this character is so repressed that he is forced all the way into what modern America defines itself against, a Soviet Russian. You understand the insanity of this statement? America can only talk about its lost population of working class people by projecting them into the boogeyman of the fallen Soviet Russian Empire. Let's examine how this Russian is the most American hero in the film. He builds with his hands. He doesn't have an AI to help him assemble things. He has vodka and Dostoevsky. Yeah, once upon a time, Tony Stark built a suit in a cave, and I'll never forget it. But Tony changed. He leaned into artificial intelligence, into enshittifying algorithms. He became an exploitative tech billionaire. Vanko doesn't have two babes to play around with while AI runs the algorithms and solves problems for which he takes the credit. He has a bird that sits on his shoulder. He's locked in. He's the only guy in this movie who doesn't suffer from pussy fever, because he's got to get shit done. He's got to make something of himself. He doesn't have time to chase tail. He's busy working on a dream, and that dream is the people's dream. He makes drones, something that can be used by everyone, not a single suit that consolidates all the power to one person. This is why he's okay with his initial skirmish against Tony. Vanko alone cannot destroy a billionaire, but he can inspire a revolution. That's what he's really trying to do. And now the attack on the stadium makes perfect sense. Are these really the helpless, innocent civilians that the movie wants you to believe they are? No, they're all of Stark's minions, the middle managers and drones of corporate America, making sure that everyone falls in line with the desires of the billionaire class, ensuring that you never get a raise that truly aligns with the value you've provided Stark Industries. Ensuring that they never raise the minimum wage to a living wage. You know what that really means. So you can make a living off of honest work. Tony Stark, Stark Industries, and the billionaire class don't want that. So Ivan is prepared to hit the billionaires where it hurts. They're workers. And what about the child? Well, it's a test. How far would you be willing to go to see a better future for yourself and your family? You're going to have to break some of the laws the billionaires establish if you really want to change the world. That's a dark, unflinching message that Vanko delivers. And that brings me to something really important, Ivan's speech. He says two kinds of different statements. One kind is very simple English statements, the others are Russian gibberish. His English speech is simple and direct. There's a Heideggerian honesty to it. The Russian gibberish is there to throw you off, to make you think this guy's literally a babbling idiot from a fallen, corrupt empire. No one would side with a babbling idiot, right? And definitely not one from a corrupt Eastern European regime, right? But as fate would have it, we are now living in the fallen, corrupt empire, and we got here by siding with the wrong person. The self-mythologizing billionaire genius promising technology would set us free while clapping the cheeks of his orbiting females and profiting off a utopia hallucination that will never exist. We should have sided with Ivan, the hard-working peasant hero who has to deal with reality, whatever the costs. I've saved my favorite character for last. I wish this guy would have had one of those terrible Disney Plus shows. It would have been the best. Sam Rockwell Justin Hammer steals the entire movie, and that's more apt for his character in America itself than you first realize. You see, he's a prescient metaphor for what's to come. Unbridled greed mixed with egomania and incompetence, all disguised under an affable, even whimsical personality. This is the future American CEO. They create nothing. They steal from competitors. But most importantly, they enshittificate. This guy, right here, is why planes are falling apart, while the Google search results are full of unhelpful spam and AI slop, and why your phone battery doesn't last as long. And Marvel saw him coming in 2010. And that's what makes Iron Man 2 one of the greatest MCU films of all time. It looked to the horizon and saw the dystopia, but it makes you think. Iron Man 2 has left me more ambivalent about the early MCU than ever before. I only had one more entry in the Iron Man series to go, and then was going to have to confront it. Confront one of the worst Marvel characters ever, Ironheart. But first, maybe, just maybe, Iron Man 3 was going to redeem Tony. Redeem the corrupted billionaire propaganda machine that the MCU had devolved into. And who wouldn't want to see that?